You know that feeling when sadness isn't just like a fleeting thought, but an actual physical weight?
Oh yeah, that literal heavy chest feeling.
Right, like the atmosphere around you just got incredibly heavy, and suddenly just the completely ordinary act of moving through your day feels like you are walking at the bottom of the ocean. You're
Yeah.
carrying the weight of the world, and there is absolutely no clear manual on how to put it down.
And in our modern world, the second we feel that weight, um, our instinct is to treat it like a glitch.
We just want to fix it.
Exactly. We want to medicate it or distract ourselves immediately. Almost as if experiencing sorrow is a personal failure rather than, a deeply universal human condition.
It is so common to treat sadness like a completely foreign invader. But today, we are taking a deep dive into a profoundly different framework for dealing with that exact feeling. And this deep dive is for you, anyone listening who has ever felt overwhelmed by that weight.
Because we've all been there.
Definitely. We are exploring a video from the YouTube channel Nourish TV, and it's specifically a presentation titled, Do This When You Are Feeling Sad. So our mission today is to dig into the Islamic perspective on managing sadness, looking closely at the practical steps, the massive mindset shifts, and the comforting philosophies the speaker offers.
And what's really compelling to look at here is that while the roots are explicitly theological, the psychological framework it builds for processing loss or handling external negativity, it offers a truly fascinating lens on human resilience.
Yeah, it really does.
It is essentially a masterclass in cognitive reframing. Anyone, regardless of their personal belief system, can find incredible value in how it constructs a defense against despair.
I think we should start with a concept the speaker introduces early on, because it completely shifts how we view our daily lives. The video explains that sadness and happiness are just natural human states, but it draws a massive, thick line between two types of happiness.
Right, the temporary versus the eternal.
Exactly. There is the everlasting spiritual connection to the Creator, and then there is material happiness. And that material happiness is explicitly defined as temporary. In Arabic, this earthly life is called the dunya.
The dunya, yeah.
And it's described not as a permanent home, but as a testing ground. We are tested through our health, our finances, our families, not by getting what we want, but by getting what is chosen for us.
And that idea of a testing ground is crucial because the speaker emphasizes that these material things are absolutely guaranteed to fluctuate. You will face fear, hunger, loss. It's an architectural guarantee of the dunya.
Right.
When we become completely devastated by material loss, it's often because we have lost focus on the reality of our destination. We've mistakenly treated the temporary as if it were permanent.
Okay, let's unpack this because I love trying to visualize these concepts. Relying purely on material things for your ultimate happiness is it's a bit like renting a beautiful beachfront house.
Okay, I like that.
It's a wonderful place to be, right? You can enjoy the ocean view, the gorgeous furniture. But if you convince yourself you actually own it, you are going to be absolutely devastated when the lease is up and the landlord asks for the keys back.
You set yourself up for a traumatic break from reality.
Exactly. But hold on, I do need to push back on this a little. Because if I'm listening to this and my life is actively falling apart, like I've lost my job or I'm grieving a massive loss, hearing that this world is just a temporary test might honestly just make me angry.
Sure, yeah.
Is this philosophy just telling people to detach and not care about their everyday lives? I mean, are we supposed to just not strive for everyday happiness at all?
It's a totally fair reaction, but what's fascinating here is the text isn't actually advocating for some joyless detachment. It's not a mandate to be miserable.
Okay.
It is making a much deeper point about where you choose to build your structural foundation. It's pointing out the architectural flaw of building your core identity on shifting sands.
I see.
Right. If your baseline of happiness is entirely dependent on your bank account, your social status, or even your physical health, you are mathematically guaranteed to experience despair eventually, because all of those things are subject to change.
They have an expiration date.
Exactly. It is entirely about expectation management. When you accept that the beachfront house is rented, you can still deeply enjoy the sunset. But when the inevitable tests arrive, when you have to pack up and move out, the structural integrity of your internal peace remains intact because your true foundation was built on something eternal.
That distinction between enjoying the temporary and depending on it is huge. It's expectation management on a spiritual scale.
Yeah.
But let's say the lease is up, the house burns down. Knowing the theory is great, but when you are in the thick of a crushing grief, you need an action plan. What does a person actually do when the sadness hits?
Well, the video provides a very direct, active prescription for that exact moment. It tells the listener that the very first thing to do when sadness strikes is to check their relationship with the divine.
And it outlines two specific mechanisms for this, right?
Yes, the 5 daily prayers, known as Salah, and the reading of the Quran. But the caveat here is crucial. It's not about doing these things as a robotic checklist. The instruction is to do them with enthusiasm.
The enthusiasm part really stands out, especially regarding the physical mechanics of the prayer itself. The speaker specifically highlights the physical act of putting one's head on the ground.
Yeah, that physical posture is so important.
Right, physically lowering yourself, bringing your head beneath your heart and placing it on the earth. It's presented as this incredibly powerful reminder of yielding control. You are physically acknowledging that you are not the supreme deity of your own life.
And from a psychological standpoint, that posture of vulnerability is fascinating. When we are sad or anxious, we are usually spiraling because we feel a profound loss of control over our circumstances.
We're desperately trying to grip onto things, slipping
Yeah.
through our fingers.
Exactly. By physically adopting a posture of submission, you are actively releasing the exhausting burden of trying to control the uncontrollable.
Right.
You are taking the reins and handing them over to a higher power, which is positioned as the true owner of your happiness.
That makes finding that internal quiet so much more accessible. And then there's the second part of the prescription, which is the Quran. It's described as a cure for the diseases of the heart and the chest.
Right, noting that the chest is physically where we feel that heavy sadness we talked about earlier.
Yeah, the literal heavy chest. And the suggestion is to read it happily, even for just 5 minutes a day. But here's where it gets really interesting to me. The video doesn't just say to read these comforting words. It specifically tells you to read them with a melody.
Yes,
It explicitly says not to read it like a textbook. So how does turning reading into a musical or artistic act actually change its emotional impact on the reader?
it creates this brilliant intersection of theology and neurobiology. Think about what happens when you read a text silently or mechanically. You're mostly just engaging the analytical parts of your brain.
And the rest of your mind is completely free to wander back to your anxieties.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when you introduce melody, when you recite with rhythm, pacing, and vocal inflection, you are forcing a complex psychological grounding effect. You have to actively engage your breath control, your vocal cords, and your auditory processing all at once.
Oh, wow. So it's like why people instinctively hum or rock back and forth when they are incredibly anxious. You're pulling your awareness forcefully out of the abstract and into your physical body.
It is the exact same mechanism, but layered with profound spiritual intent. You are pulling the mind out of the spiraling loop of sadness and anchoring it firmly in a present moment of mindful reverence.
You just can't physically panic and do all of that at the same time.
Right. It creates a complete interruption to the depressive thought pattern. You simply cannot maintain a full panic spiral while simultaneously focusing on a melodic recitation and managing your breath.
That makes so much sense. So we've been talking about dealing with the internal chaos of sadness, utilizing these deeply personal practices. But what happens when the pain isn't just in your own head?
Like external sources?
Yeah, what about when the sadness is caused by other people actively trying to bring us down, spreading rumors, saying harsh things? The video actually tackles this head on.
It does, and to address it, the speaker brings in a powerful historical precedent. The video acknowledges the reality that people will inevitably say terrible things about you.
Yeah.
And to provide comfort, it points to Prophet Muhammad.
Right.
It explains that even the prophet experienced deep, profound sadness because of disbelievers spreading false statements and rumors about him.
Yeah, the video references a specific verse meant to comfort the prophet, essentially saying, do not let their statements sadden you.
Which is such a direct, empathetic message.
It is. It points out that detractors usually speak out of arrogance, not truth. And the logic presented is so stark. If people were willing to utter the absolute worst words about a highly revered prophet, then ordinary people are certainly going to face harsh words too.
It completely normalizes the experience of being misunderstood.
It's like finding out that the most successful, universally respected person you can possibly imagine still deals with anonymous online trolls.
Exactly.
But in the moment, when someone says something awful to you, does knowing this history actually dull the sting of a personal insult?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the reason this historical precedent works so well is that it actively removes the personal isolation of the pain.
Okay, how so?
Well, when someone insults us or spreads a rumor, our immediate reaction is a feeling of profound isolation. We feel targeted, uniquely victimized. We ask ourselves, why is everyone looking at me? What is wrong with me?
Yeah, it's that awful feeling of being the only one standing under a spotlight.
But by aligning your own mundane struggles with the historical struggles of a revered religious figure, that spotlight is turned off. The feeling of victimization is replaced by a feeling of shared human experience.
Wow. So you're not alone.
Right, the message is you are not uniquely flawed because you are being attacked. You are actually walking the exact same path that the best of humanity walked. It completely reframes the bullying. It turns the insult from a mark of your inadequacy into a badge of your shared resilience.
That is a massive paradigm shift. It tells a listener that the arrogant spreaders of rumors are the ones with the spiritual disease, not the victim.
Exactly.
You insulate yourself from others' words by realizing the incredible company you keep in that suffering. But let's push into even deeper waters here.
Nay.
We can reframe insults and rumors. But what about when the loss isn't just words? What about when the beachfront house actually burns down? Looking at history feels like it would snap under the weight of true, tangible heartbreak, like sickness or financial ruin.
Honestly, this is the part of the video that is the hardest to swallow, because it asks the listener to completely flip how they view a disaster.
Yeah, it introduces the concept of the amazing believer, right?
Yes, it relies on reframing hardship not as a random punishment, but as a deliberate, bespoke mechanism of spiritual growth.
And the video offers a few steps for this. It starts with a classic tool. Look at those who have less than you to cultivate immediate appreciation.
Right, which grounds you.
But then it introduces a hadith, a teaching that states the Creator tests people according to how much he loves them. And the equation presented is literal, more love equals bigger tests.
Which sounds completely backward at first.
It really does. But the logic is that human nature dictates we only seek deeper solutions and draw closer to the divine when we are faced with major issues. If we were totally comfortable, we wouldn't bother reaching out.
And to illustrate this, the speaker recounts the story of Abu Bakr and the Prophet Muhammad. It's a famous story of the two of them hiding in a cave, actively being hunted by their enemies.
They are facing absolute imminent danger.
Right, and in that terrifying moment, the ultimate comfort the Prophet offers isn't a brilliant strategic escape plan. It is simply the phrase, "Don't be sad, Allah is with us."
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have the story of finding peace in a terrifying cave, and then the video's description of the amazing believer. The affairs of a true believer are described as inherently amazing because of this dual response system.
Yes, exactly.
When goodness happens, they are thankful, which is good for them. And when bad things happen, they are patient. The Arabic term used is sabru, which is also good for them. They say alhamdulillah or praise be to God in absolutely all conditions.
Barring the condition of hellfire, as the video notes.
Right. So what does this all mean for someone sitting in the ruins of their life? I have to challenge this because taking it at face value, does this mean immense hardship is literally framed as a privilege?
It is a really tough concept.
Because if your life is falling apart, hearing someone say, "Congratulations, this means you are loved," feels totally counterintuitive. It reminds me of having a grueling athletic coach. The coach pushes you to the point of absolute physical and mental exhaustion, not because they hate you, but precisely because they are the only one who sees your Olympic potential.
That analogy of the grueling coach captures it perfectly. And it is an incredibly tough pill to swallow in the middle of a crisis. But from a psychological standpoint, it is a brilliant cognitive reframe.
Why is that?
Because it completely and utterly annihilates the victim mentality. When trauma hits, the human brain desperately searches for meaning. If we believe the suffering is just random chaos, it breeds deep despair.
You just feel like the universe stepped on you by accident.
But if you adopt the framework this video proposes, that hardship is a bespoke sign of love designed to pull you closer to your ultimate purpose, then your suffering is no longer meaningless. It has profound utility.
You aren't being punished, you are being trained.
Exactly. The obstacle is the path. This belief system demands sabr, which is often translated as patience. But it isn't just passively sitting around waiting for the pain to stop. It's an active, resilient endurance. It is based on the absolute trust that the architect of the test knows exactly what you can handle.
That completely flips the script on adversity. Now, we've spent a lot of time in these incredibly heavy, deeply internal spiritual frameworks. But then the video pivots to a remedy that doesn't require complex theological reframing.
Yeah, it brings up something surprisingly accessible.
The remedy of nature.
Right. It moves from the abstract theology of tests and patience to the very tangible physical world right outside our doors. The speaker points out what modern counselors often advise highly stressed individuals to do. Go look at greenery, sit by the water, watch horses.
The speaker enthusiastically encourages the listener to look at the creations, the trees, the animals, even the air they are breathing. But it makes a fascinating distinction. It says that for a secular person, this is just scenery that scientifically de-stresses you.
Right.
But for a believer, these are signs for those with intellect. They are deliberate indicators showing the greatness and the oneness of the Creator. The ultimate sadness, the video concludes, comes from drifting away from this connection, getting lost in partying, gambling. And the ultimate cure is just turning around and coming back.
It's a beautiful synthesis of the physical and the spiritual. What we are seeing here is how looking outward at vast things, the endless sky, the rhythm of the ocean, physically shrinks our internal problems.
I really love how this harmonizes with modern psychology. Nature is essentially presented as a universal reset button for the human nervous system.
Definitely. We know that experiencing awe lowers cortisol.
Right, but the speaker is adding a critical theological layer. Don't just blindly push the reset button and walk away feeling a little better. Acknowledge the programmer who built the button. Recognize the intent behind the sunset.
It visually reinforces that earlier point about the dunya. When you walk outside and look up at a sky full of stars, you are viscerally reminded of your scale. Your worldly problems, the lost job, the vicious rumor, suddenly feel incredibly small compared to the vastness of the universe.
It literally broadens your horizon. It pulls you out of your own head and places you within a massive, deliberate design. And that brings us full circle on this deep dive.
It really does.
We started by looking at sadness as this heavy, unnatural weight. But through the lens of this video, we've unpacked a totally different architecture. We explored the idea of sadness as a natural reaction to the temporary lease of the dunya.
We looked at the grounding practices of prayer and interrupting sorrow with the neurobiology of melodic reading.
Yeah, and we also saw how to normalize our social struggles by looking at the historical precedent of figures like Prophet Muhammad, understanding that being attacked is a shared human experience, not a personal failing.
And maybe the most challenging shift, reframing our deepest hardships as a grueling but loving test designed to build saber.
Active patience. And finally, using the undeniable beauty of the natural world to shrink our anxieties.
You know, whether you approach these concepts from a place of deep faith or simply as a curious student of human philosophy, the tools presented here are profound. Practicing radical gratitude, engaging in mindful pauses, and deliberately seeking awe in the natural world, these are universal antidotes to despair.
It gives you a way to put the weight down, even if just for a moment, to look at the sky. Which leaves us with a final thought for you to carry with you today.
Okay.
We talked heavily about the idea that tests are actually a sign of potential and love, like that grueling coach who won't let you quit.
Because they see what you're capable of.
Exactly. So if our greatest challenges are actually custom design opportunities, meticulously intended to draw out our highest potential, what if the specific sadness, the exact frustration you are carrying around right now, isn't a roadblock at all? What if that heavy, sinking feeling is actually the exact curriculum you need to master your next stage of life?
Is this the end of the story or just the resistance training required for the next chapter?
The next time you feel like you're walking at the bottom of the ocean, carrying the weight of the world, maybe you aren't drowning. Maybe you're just learning how to handle the pressure before you surface. Take care of yourselves out there, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.